So I've been thinking a lot about all of the YouTube growth advice that I've heard a lot of other creators say and myself as well, and how largely it's mostly positive and encouraging and inspirational and optimistic in nature. And I think that's great. And there's a lot of truth to it. But I also feel like there's a lot that has not been said. There are a lot of hidden truths with respect to the new creator experience that a lot of creators don't talk about, and I've been thinking about a few things and I thought I might share them today. And if you guys hear anything that resonates with you, just leave a comment below. A lot of these will be drawn from personal experience, but I'm sure these are shared experiences as well. And hopefully that's the point of the video today, is to kind of convey just a shared experience so you know that you're not alone out there if you're starting this YouTube channel and you feel any of these things. So the first thing is the difficulty with dealing with like your self-worth as it's tied to the number of views that you get. So the relationship between how your videos do and how you feel about yourself. It can be amazing on the days that you have really good video performance. It can inflate your ego. It can inspire you to want to do more. You can start to feel like, hey, there's some validation here and I can keep going. It may give you a false sense of confidence in a way too, because, you know, chances are you're not going to be able to replicate that success on any follow-up videos if you have a viral video pop off. But on the flip side, I think the majority of where we spend our time is on the negative, because most of our videos don't perform as well, right? If you think about the 80-20 rule, 80% of the time, I think for me, my videos don't do better than my channel average. And that's okay. I'm coming to terms with that. But for those of you out there who are maybe not seeing any traction or results on your channel and you're tying it back to your self-worth, it can be really hard to untangle that and to detach yourself and to somehow remove the number of views that you're getting from how people view you personally. Because so much of what we put into these videos is ourselves. It's our personality. It's us on camera. It's our vulnerability. It's our creativity. And if it's met with 0 views or low views, I can see how we would feel rejected. And that sucks. And I think one way to think about it, if this is in any way consoling, is that your video is competing with other people's videos. And the other people have been doing it for a lot longer than you. So their skill level is a lot higher. And so your novice skill level competing with someone much more experienced, it creates this unfair advantage for them. And so try to find a little bit of peace in that, because otherwise, you could spiral, and that's not a good feeling. And I will say, though, I think it's valid and I think it's fair. And I think it's a perfectly reasonable way to think about YouTube. And I think that's also part of the challenge of YouTube, is that it does really require a high degree of, I think, emotional intelligence, dealing with your own emotions in a healthy way. It requires resilience, and you have to develop a thick skin, and you have to understand the ebbs and flows, and you have to be able to compartmentalize the highs and the lows as well, and not treat those things personally. But that's so hard to do. The other thing that I think about a lot too is the conundrum that we face when trying to come up with content or topic ideas, and how oftentimes we want to express ourselves creatively. We want to speak from a place of authenticity. We have our own ideas of what we want to talk about and what we think we can help our audience with. But sometimes those things don't land. And other times we see other people in our niche or maybe adjacent to our niche who jump on a trend, jump on a topic that has already been talked about a lot, and they will then have a lot of success with that. And I get it. On YouTube, it's common for people to steal thumbnail ideas, topic ideas, title ideas. It's kind of par for the course. I don't think the YouTube viewership largely cares. But I also think in some way, it's a little bit disingenuous. It's a little bit like cutting corners, because at the end of the day, I mean, are you really earning all of those views? Are you really adding that much more value? And maybe that's the wrong way to think about it. And I'll be honest, like, I'm completely guilty of the same thing I'm criticizing right now. This video topic I stole this, the title. So I'm borrowing this title from another niche. This was very much an outlier video for the creator. And I thought I might tweak it for my niche. And maybe that's okay because the niches are very, very different. But when I see a lot of the same creators in the same niche just stealing each other's titles literally days apart, and yeah, they put their own twist on it. But I mean, I don't know. I feel mixed up about that because I understand the urge to want to grow and to, make money and to grow your audience and your influence. Like I totally get that, but it just feels a little icky. So anyway, I'm curious your thoughts. If you have any thoughts on that, how you feel about trend hopping, stealing people's titles, and even if they do put a novel or unique spin on it, I think that's great that they can do that. But it's also, I don't know, it's just a little plagiaristic to me, if that's even a word. The other thing I think about, I don't hear a lot of folks talking about it. It's something that a newer creator, you're going to really need to think about this, is YouTube is a lot of work and it requires a lot of energy and effort. And you may be the type, and maybe you're not, where you can work on a project or a hobby or a passion for a long period of time and you can kind of get zoned in and you can get in like deep focus. So I don't know if that's you or not, but that's me. And if so, you can kind of neglect things, other social activities, people in your life, relationships, your partner, your family. And I don't mean like neglect. I mean like you kind of tune them out. You're not overly present and you're just kind of stuck to your screen. And I guess we all deal with this in different ways. There's other things obviously outside of YouTube that distract us. And I know I've been on the other side of being around people where they're kind of just sucked into their phone and they don't really interact, and you ask them questions and they just kind of give you one word answers, and like that's frustrating and a little isolating. But I think it's all too easy for us as creators, especially as we're learning all of these new skills and studying and researching and writing and editing. Like all of these things take a lot of time to do. And it's probably pretty easy for us to tune out the people in our lives and not give them the time and attention that they need. And maybe you guys are a lot better than that, or a lot better at that than I am. Maybe that's a me problem, but just something to be cognizant of, because this will require a lot of you. I think YouTube does. And it's all too easy to get sucked in. So with that too, the other element is the YouTube studio and some of the addictive mechanics behind having 24 access to how your channel is performing. And I mean, I almost think like people who are really into personal finance, they're probably checking the stock market constantly throughout the day. We have these screens at our disposal that can distract us, that can give us information. There's notifications, there's things to check in on, there's people pinging us. There are so many things that pull for our attention and that make us look at a screen all day. One, it leads to what I was just talking about with being tuned out and not being present, but also you can develop an unhealthy habit with checking your analytics in the YouTube studio. And I'm totally guilty of this. I'll be the first to admit. First of all, I love data and numbers. I love that from my previous job, and I just naturally gravitate towards looking at trends and things like that. And that's good for ideation and planning and like, trying to like plot out where you're going to be and looking for ways to improve. But if you're just sitting there refreshing your screen over and over again, you're wasting a lot of time. And two, it's not good for your mental health. I mean, we all know the perils of quick dopamine hits and how short form content is like bad for you. I think the YouTube studio and platforms like Threads and X, they're probably also bad for you, because whenever we're bored, we go for our phones, we look at whatever app has a notification. And for me, that's YouTube studio. And then I'm just refreshing that screen and I'm looking for comments and I want to reply to people and I want to see if my views have gone up. But what would happen if I didn't check for 24 hours? Like it would just do what it's going to do. Me looking at it doesn't make it do something different. And yeah, there's something to be said about wanting to change your titles and thumbnails at some point after you post to make sure that, if they're not performing well, you can maybe course correct on that. But I think for most newer people, we don't really have the wherewithal to make those course corrections. And it may just become one of those things where we're compulsively checking and it's really not good. So I would avoid that at all costs. And then kind of tying into the screen time and the tuning out of people in our lives, YouTube can also be pretty isolating in a way. If you're like me and you can get all of your videos done from the comforts of your home and you don't really have a reason to go out and network and talk to people and like go out in nature, then gosh, a whole week can go by without leaving the house. And it's just me and my partner, and she works from home, and I get to talk to her in the evenings. But other than that, I don't have a lot of interaction with other people outside of like DMs and emails and text messages. So I think for newer creator, especially if you're, jumping in all the way and you're really immersing yourself in this YouTube adventure, it can be easy to lose sight of the fact that days may be slipping by without having meaningful connection to other people. So don't isolate yourself. Loneliness is a thing for people of all ages. And it's easy to get lost in your work. So I always advocate for finding a group of other YouTube people to partner with, to try to, collaborate with, just to bounce ideas and things like that. So look for Facebook groups, look for school communities, look for subreddits, look for Discord servers. There's a lot of ways to connect to people, and I think that's really important. And if you're out there and you're feeling lonely, or like you're on an island and you don't have an outlet, you don't have people in your life that you can talk to about YouTube, let me know, send me an email, because I think there's also something to be said about the number of hours and energy that people put into YouTube, and even the people that they're closest to in real life, their best friends, their spouses, their kids, their parents. Those people, unless they are also creating content, they won't be able to reciprocate or really understand what you're working on or what you're going through. And some of them might just placate you or think it's like a fun hobby that you're going to eventually lose interest in, and that's fine. And maybe that's the case for some of us. But for the rest of us who are taking it very seriously, it's challenging to talk about it to people who don't know what it's like to do it. And maybe that sounds really self-aggrandizing. And maybe it's not as big a deal as I'm making it out to be. But I suspect there's some of you out there who you talk to your spouse about it and they just like kind of shrug at you, like they don't really know how to respond, or they kind of just give you like, okay, hon, that's nice. But with the amount of time and energy and also vulnerability, like you're putting yourself on the internet for the whole world to see and potentially criticize. And some people are assholes and they will trash you in the comments, and that can really ruin your day. And if you don't have someone to talk to about that kind of thing, you can stew and you can get in your head and you can keep you up at night. So I don't know. I just think that's something to avoid. Mental health is important. And don't do this alone unless you really, really, really like it, unless you're like a super introvert and you just like love the solitude. So anyway, I hope this was helpful in some way for anyone who needed to hear any of this. This was just my random thoughts of the day. But let me know in the comments what you think, if anything stood out to you. And of course, if you want to connect through email, shoot me an email. It's in the description below. And I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you in the next one.